Hi, I'm Daniel Metler from Tusik Internet Solutions, and in this short video I want to show you how you can create a very simple app without writing any code whatsoever in about 10 minutes. We're going to create a news app, so a very common kind of app which has a list of items and a details view. And it's a great place to get started with, so that if you want to enhance it to make your news more complex, or if you want to do anything else with it, like create a job listing or create anything else, product directory, this is a good place to start with. So what are we going to do? We're going to have a compact list for the side pane. This is like, for example, putting it on the home page. It's going to be bootstrap and responsive. We're going to create a full page list on the news page as well. So that's like when you want to go to more news or old news or whatever, you get a full list. And of course, the details view. All this is in bootstrap and responsive, and this tutorial is just to help you set everything up. So we've already prepared the HTML for these parts. All we want to do now is make sure that it's super easy to edit and that your content editor can't break it and that it's fully automatic. So let's get started. Our goal is that it's going to be very simple. For me, it's very important to create an app that has no business logic or code in it. So it's important that normal users, like admin users, can edit it and that you don't run into security issues. If we were to use Razor or things like that, then of course, if you want to update the design to fit your needs and you don't have the security elevated permissions, you wouldn't be able to change it. Going the simple way makes it very easy to update, low tech, trivial. The app will be distributable in seconds. I'll put it on the app catalog in a few minutes after creating the video. And it should be very easy to update if you want to do anything else with it. So what do we need to do? We want to make sure you have a DNN-7.4 in it. Currently 7.4.1 still has some bugs, so please use 7.4.0 and install 2.7.1. If you don't know how to do this, watch some other blogs. And what we've already done, of course, is the designer created the designs that you just saw on the screen and created the HTML and CSS for it in Bootstrap. So basically what we're doing, we have a design and now we're just wiring it up. Very often you may also start with wiring it up first and just creating a very nasty looking design and then give the app to the designer to finish it. So both processes work, but to keep the video simple and nice, I decided to go with design first. This is what we're going to do. Create an empty app, create the content types. That's like the data structure, which will contain the title, the summary, and things like that. And then we're going to create the compact list view. We're going to start with that, and we're going to create placeholders and everything so that it automatically works, and we're going to test it. As soon as that works, we'll go on to the details view. And there's a few trivial things. Of course, template placeholders is necessary as well. But what we're going to also do is we're going to have to make sure that the details view appears properly when somebody clicks on details. So we're going to configure it that the URL, as soon as it contains the word details, will not show the list anymore, but will show the details. We're also going to do something that it takes the item from the URL. So we're not always going to show the same item on the details view, of course, but we're going to show the one that is mentioned in the address. And then we'll relink the main list. Then we'll create the long list, kind of the archive. And for that, we're actually going to reuse the very same template. We're not even going to copy it. We're just going to add some configuration to it so that the user, the content editor, can choose some display things and say, well, this is the compact view and it has an H2 in the title, or it's the long view and it has an H1 in the title. So very simple things, but things that are very common when you create apps and things like that. So let's just get started. What we'll do first in this case is we will do these things here, create empty app, content types, and compact list. And this is what we do. We'll add a new module. We'll say it's an app. Now, instead of picking one here, we don't have it yet. We're going to say I have to go into the app management and I'm going to create one first. It's going to be called News Simple. And in this, I could click on manage here, but in most cases, it's easier to then say, okay, I'm going to choose this one now. And of course, it doesn't do anything. Nothing's been configured yet. So let's go into the app management for News Simple. And I'm first going to create the content type, and it's going to be called News. There's not much of a description for it. And I'm going to do this in a rather speedy way just to keep the tutorial a bit short. Title, summary, or we'll call this intro. Body, image. This should be a hyperlink. I'll show you more about that in a moment. And the date, which is a date, of course. And very often the date will be up a little bit. Just the way, that's how we often do it. Let's do some configuration. The intro, we will say, is a simple multi-line text, but let's just make it easier for people to edit it. And I'm having a bit of trouble with my screen size here. Then the body itself, of course, will be a WYSIWYG. And the image itself is going to be a hyperlink. It's going to be an image. It should come from the folder news. I'll show you a bit more about that in a second. And that's about it. Now, if we go to here, I should be able to add one and say, okay, new item. This happened today. And I'll write a bunch of stuff here. Now I cannot pick the image yet because the folder news does not exist. So this dialog won't work for the moment. I have to create the folder first. Let's just do that quickly. In a new tab, I will quickly go into the administration, file management. I like creating own folders for most topics, so I'm going to call this news. It just helps you keep everything cleaned up a bit. Now in the news, this is the folder. Let me just quickly make sure that the permissions are okay, because if we don't have these permissions, an important functionality won't work. So now if I click on edit, I should immediately go to the folder news and I can now upload things. So this is really comfortable for the content editor. Let's just say I'm going to add the blue logo and of course a photo of myself. We're going to upload all this and I will say, okay, the first piece of news has to do with our logo, and that's it. So now we created a simple item, everything's linked. The file is linked with a number, by the way, that's great. So if you rename it or move the file, things will still work. So now we've prepared the content type. So based on this section here, we've created the empty app and we've created the content type. Instead of summary, I called it intro, but except for that, we just did the very same thing and we added a demo item. So now let's go ahead and create a template for this. I'm going to say new template and I'm going to call this list. View, and maybe we'll call this compact list. Well, it's a token, and we're going to say it's also list, and we're going to say it supports news items. We're going to say it has a demo item. This allows us to preview things without having to enter more data. We're going to say it's enabled for list, and that's all we have to do so far. So doing that prepares this. Now if I close the window, it's going to select this template automatically because it's the only view that is built into this app at the moment. Of course, it just says you have created something, blah, 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 blah. Not very exciting. Now, the thing is, we've already prepared some things for us, of course. So let's look at this. This is the folder of our running system. I'm going to go into new simple, and this is the file compact list, which will contain this text. So if I open this in Notepad++, you will notice you successfully created your own template. Not very exciting. Now, my web designer already prepared something, including a style file. Let's put this in the same folder. And a few views. We're going to look at the news home thing here. I'm just going to copy everything into this file here. I'm going to close the other one again. So now all the HTML he prepared is in my file. If I go back to Chrome and refresh, then everything down here should be what he had prepared. The picture's missing because I didn't copy that, but we're basically set. It just doesn't show what I entered, it just shows static HTML. So let's change that. So for example, let's start with the picture. Instead of using this path here that he had prepared, let's say this is content image, and we'll use the same resizing parameters here just because that's how we want it. So what should happen? The first item should now have my logo in the correct size. The size is too big, of course, but that's because we want it to be responsive. So the CSS takes care of the real size. The URL just tells us what the maximum size is going to be in here. Now the title, of course, should not be Demo News 1, but it should be Content Title. And the date should be Content Date. Now you may remember I specified that we had a demo data here, and this is what we're seeing. So even though the user has not entered anything yet, we have not entered it, we can already work and see what's happening. We also have a typo here on content title. I forgot to close the brackets, and the date doesn't look so nice yet. So maybe we don't want to show the time. Then we can just add formatting specifiers here with a pipe sign and format, and then we just have the date. Very simple to do. It's going to respect the culture of the user. So this is all super trivial. And in here in the paragraph, we're going to want the content intro. So again, you see, this is really no magic at all. Anybody can do this with some understanding of HTML, and very easy to go ahead. So wonderful stuff. The intros here, the pictures here. What are we missing? The edit buttons, and as well the list functionality. So let's go ahead and look at that part. Right now, everything seems to work, but it just shows the demo data. The user cannot change it. So now, here we have a link going across everything. If we tried to add edit buttons in here, it would conflict with the link in here. So we're going to add the content toolbar before that. Now, it doesn't look so sexy up here. So what we want to do is we want it to make it hover and appear and disappear whenever we need it. And we do that by adding a class here called SC element. That just means this wrapper here is a sexy content element, and that will automatically make it create a hover menu. This is great because it has various functionalities in here, like adding more items. For example, if I hit this one would try to add another item, but this one would ask me in a dialog, that's why it's boxed, what I would like to have in it. This one would just add another demo item. So let me do that, and nothing will happen, but there's another one in there now. That means I can now start going for the list functionality. Right now, the bottom div here that we have is just a static text. I'm going to delete this. Now, I would like to have, let me just see okay, app news item. This is the wrapper. So from here to here is what I'm going to want to repeat. Let me do that very easily. So this is the syntax for it. You can read more about it later on in our documentation, but basically it says, if you take the data that comes in on the default stream, which is the standard stream, then please repeat through it, and inside it, we're going to call it content. So very trivial, and that's why this will work in here. It already worked because that's a standard name anyways, but I could also call this something else. I could also call this news, and then I could call this here news, and news, and news, and news. This is a good idea to do usually, by the way, because it just makes it nicer to understand. Now, if everything works correctly, this should just look the same, except that I now have 2 items and 2 demo items, because I just hit plus here. Remember, in the mouse over mode, I had just hit plus. Whoop, sorry about that. And it created a second demo item. Now, right now, I'm missing the menu. That's because I have a typo here. But now it's in here. If I would hit plus again, and I mean this plus, then it would add another demo item. So I can really preview what's going on. Let's just test if the editing works. If I hit edit here, the expectation is that I have a blank template and I don't want it pre-filled. That's what happens. The demo item does not show up in the content. It just is a preview, but now I can say, okay, this really seems to work. Let's pretend this happened today as well. I do pray that this works. And here is lots of text. To make sure we know we have a different picture, let's take my photo instead and save that. And we should now see my photo here, and the other ones still contain the demo item. So I can really say the list view now works. Everything is super simple, it works. You can enhance this any way you want, add fields. So the next step, what we're going to do now is we're going to add a details view. So, in other words, back to the presentation. Next step is let us do the details view. So let's go in there, create a view, call it details. We're going to create a new one. We will also use the news content type. And just for designing, we're also going to use this demo item. It's not going to be list enabled. And let's see what happens. So this is kind of ready. And you'll notice, of course, what do we do now? I'm going to have to delete this module right now, because just for demonstration, I'm going to add it now. And I will now, if I select the new simple, I could still choose the list view, which I have right now, or the details. The details, of course, being empty. Now, remember this was the compact list. Let us go over there and open the details view, which the system just created for us. And from the original code my web designer presented, let us copy everything again. So this seems to work. Again, doesn't look very nice because we're still missing a lot of placeholders. And let's just get going and add this. So title here is content title, and the title should change. Date, yes, and it should change. The image, same thing, of course. Image replaced, and you notice it's cropped completely differently. This is because we're using image resizing, which is really awesome and helps us control the way the things look on our screen. So we have a different proportion in here, and it works wonderfully and does exactly what we want. And in here, we seem to have the body. We seem to have a funny situation with multiple P's inside multiple P tags. I wonder if this one ever closes. It does, but in a rather... okay. This is some content I added previously. So this is one big content block. And here we're going to say content body. So of course the text is a bit shorter than previously. So this seems to work now, right? But it's just showing one single item. And this is not going to help much if we want to show a details page for every single item. We'd have to create a page for everything, and that's not exactly fun. So how do we go about solving this problem? The real trick is to say things very differently. I'm going to go back to the list view. But now I'm going to reconfigure the system so that if the URL contains the term details, and anything behind it, that's very important, I'll show you that in a moment, then it should show the details view. So that's the first step. We're now going to say that even though this is the default view we have right now, if it said, let's say, details 700, it would show the details view, just like you see right now. Of course, it's still showing our demo item. The next step is to make sure that this ID here has to be the ID of the item we're showing. How does that work? Well, first of all, let's adapt the link on the list. So here we had just an href here, and we're going to go to tab full URL, I believe is the correct one, and then details, and then we're going to say content entity ID. We could also show other things in here, but if everything works, the mouse over will now go to details 2143. Now it may accidentally work because it may just by chance be that we're using the same demo item. Of course, it's a fake thing. So if I would now go in here and say, please replace this item with the one we just had, then the details would still not show this one. Okay, it does show it, but this is a coincidence because that's the first item that's in there. Again, if I hit plus here, that was confusing myself. At the moment, the details just shows the first item configured on the module. So let me just move this up, and you will then see. Now this is the item we have on top, but if I click here, it's still going to show the first one. So it doesn't work. Okay, it's just showing the demo item, or the item which is the first one in the list, which wouldn't help us. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that details gets the item number 2143. So that is called a query. And we're just going to create that right now. How does it work? First, we have to create a query, which basically says, get us data from the system based on a certain criteria. For this, I'm going to create a new query, and it's called get news item or news details. I'm not going to add a description, and I'm going to add a test parameter here called query string, and I'm going to call this details, and I'm going to say this is 2143, which is the item we just clicked on. And I'm doing this because while I'm designing a query, I'm not going to use real URL values. It may by accident stand there, but it's not being used. And what I have here now is I have a default configuration. This is actually how 2Sexy would work if you don't do anything. It has a cached data. It'll make sure that only published data is shown to the user. It's going to check out what data is assigned to this module, the things I just added in the GUI, and it'll pass this on to the target, the view, JavaScript, whatever. Now let's change this because we don't really want a module data source in here. It's not going to help us. So let's just kick that out. Now we're going to say, please just get an entity ID filter. So now we have a new component here. And we're going to say, let's do a test run that please test this. And in the entity, so in other words, we're saying, okay, right now all the data is still going into here. And we're going to say, please just give us number, what was it called here? Let me just check. 2143. This is just for testing to kind of see, does the right item appear? I can then hit query, and I will then see I got one simple news just created, wonderful stuff, you'll love it. And this is my picture. So this seems to work. But now we don't want to handwrite the value in here. We want to say, no, please use it from query string details. Now in test mode, this is going to work because we added the test parameter previously. You probably remember that. We had query string details being that number. So let's check that out. Run a query. It seems to work. So this query now does exactly one thing. It gets one item with this number and prepares it for the template. So that's all it does. So if we go back to our system here, we go back and we now go to the template. I'll go to the details and say, here's a special thing. Don't use the default data pipeline, which is the one that just gets the data from the module, but please use this one here, which will say get news details based on the URL. And let's update that. And if I now close this, my expectation is that it will not show this one anymore, but that this one should now get whatever we just specified to show the right one. So in other words, now clicking here will have the correct URL, and this one shows the first one, the demo item. Clicking here will add the URL like, oh, here's a point, it still shows the wrong item in the link. See, it still goes to 43. So let's check what went wrong there. Here's a point. I'm using the term content instead of news because in my loop, the item is called news. So that's why it didn't work. So that's why the link was wrong. The link pointed to 43 instead of 46. Now it works. So if this was too quick, watch the video again. What I did is in the list now, it has a link containing a parameter to change the views and the number of the item to show. In the second view, I have a query saying only get the items mentioned in the URL, and then the view will show that. So that was, so far in our presentation, we did this part here. Template placeholders, configure the app to show the view, and of course also make sure that the view will show the item, and then I relinked the main list. So that's it for so far. And we're going to continue in a few seconds with the long list. So the long list is like the short list, but has a few subtle differences. Let's look at that. If we look at the list here, this was the list that will be, if I resize this, you'll notice it'll get compact and simple. And this is the way we would like it in a write pane. And most of this is identical to the way we would want it in a large picture. There's of course some issues still with the picture sizes and things like that, but let's assume that all we want to do is we want to make sure that the title's a bit different in H1. So what are we going to do here? We're going to go back into the administration and we're going to say we have another view, and this is called full list. We're going to say it's based on the same template, and we're not going to give it a content type right now, or we might, but actually let's not. Give it a content type. And so in other words, if I would now change the full list, it's not going to be very exciting. I cannot switch lists quickly because I can only switch them, but I'll just add another module on top showing the full list, and you'll see that it's not what you expect. What we have here, new simple, and we have the full list, and it's going to be rather boring because it has no content assigned to it. Now, the full list is different than the short list because the short list may be manually managed or there may be some parameters in it, but the full list should show everything. So how does that work? Let's go in and we're going to create another query again because we don't want to manage the full list manually. So I'm going to create a new query. I'm going to say all news sorted. Module ID is fine with me. And if I open this in the designer, we're going to do the same things again. We're going to remove the standard way it's implemented, the module data source, and we're going to add a entity type filter first of all. What does this mean? All the data that comes from the back end here from the publishing filter contains everything. But we don't want everything. We just want items of the type news, because otherwise you'll get some system types and data you don't really want to visualize. So if we do this now, we'll just get all the entities from news. We'll have a lot of them, but of course the sorting isn't controlled yet. And we do want controlled sorting because otherwise this would suck. So we're going to unwire that again, and we're going to say I need a value sort. And I'm going to switch this in between. I'm going to say, great, I want sorting. And I'm going to say, please sort on the attribute of date, ascending. Maybe we'll also have a title in addition, but by date, it should usually do the thing. So if we query this again, you won't notice a big difference because both have the same date. But trust me, if we change the date, this would work. So now we created a query which delivers all the items sorted by date. And now we're going to go back into here and say, well, that's just great because our full list, well, that one should actually get all news details, not the details, all the sorted news automatically. And that's it. They're there. It just retrieves all of them and shows them. So that's the first thing we changed. This list is now going to be fully automatic because whenever an item is added, or if let's pretend this one here is, I have to think, actually we want sorting to be descending. So let's say this one here, this one's very old. Let's say 2014. I think right now I said the sorting is ascending, so that's wrong. Yeah, this one's now on top, right? Because the sorting is automatic on the full list. But that's wrong. Let's just change the sorting again. I still have the pipeline open. I'm not going to say ascending, I'm going to say descending. So the pipeline should now work a different way. And if I now refresh this, the sorting is corrected. So you see, that's the power of using configuration-based app development. It's so easy, and it's easy for you to customize if you want to do something different. So that was the second step. And I could add a lot of more features, like let's say the heading here is by default a heading 1, but it could be a heading 2. And there's a lot more other things I'd love to show you, but I realize that the video is getting a bit long, so I'll do those things a little later. I hope you liked it so far. I'm going to package this app in 2 or 3 minutes. Actually, no, I'm going to package it for you right now. So let's go ahead. Wrong button, sorry about that. And I'm going to package this for you right now because so you see how easy it is to redistribute this. I'm going to go in the app configuration, and it's a bit tiny here with the screen. Let me go full screen. And let me just add a few more things. It's called here simple news to get started. So this is the first version. It just has token templates, nothing else. And I'm going to do one more thing. No, I'm not. So I'm going to say, let's export this app. So I'm going to export this app. This is all the data. Export. And it's now going to create a zip for me, which contains everything in this app. You can now install this on any other system. And I will add it to the app catalog within a few minutes now so that you can download it and have fun with it and experiment and continue working with it. So I hope you liked it. This is Daniel Mettler for Too Sick Internet Solutions, creating a flexible, no-code, very safe, very easy to reconfigure HTML news app. And it took me a bit more than 10 minutes actually. I think I'm at a half an hour now. But I do hope you liked it. And yeah, let's just quickly correct that in 30 minutes. So I hope you liked it anyways. And I hope you benefit a lot from this, because you too can create awesome apps like this very easily, and they just work. Thank you for watching. Daniel Mettler, Too Sick Internet Solutions, Too Sexy Content, DNN, whatever. Thank you.